And let me tell you, it is conceivable that out between here and the airport there could be 1,000 acres of land sold to Gaddafi. He could build a fence around it, put up 2 plants, build boots for his army, build uniforms for his army, and probably do it with an ad valorem tax exemption and bond issue. We do not know what the ownership, foreign ownership is in this country today, and if anybody tells you you do, they do not know what they're talking about. I heard in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago when I was there, a gentleman told me that he had lost one of his best friends. He thought because they'd had a terrible argument. His best friend was a lawyer that had just got through selling, you know, my head's kind of messed up with numbers, either 80,000 or 180,000 acres of land in Colorado to the West Germans in 1 month. Are we going to be a sharecropper country? People say they bring jobs. Baloney, they don't bring jobs. Let me tell you, America had less than 7% unemployed 2 or 3 years ago. What the foreign nations are doing, they're sending imports in, taking the jobs, breaking the industry, they're buying them for a song and singing it themselves. And we can become a sharecropper nation.
Lawyers for the SPLC brought the suit after a 19-year-old pregnant woman from Montgomery claimed she was being held at the home against her will. U.S. District Court Judge Myron Thompson heard testimony from 2 16-year-old girls who lived at the home, identified only as Donna M. and Cindy T., both from Mississippi. The girls testified to beatings at the hands of the people who run the home. Donna M. says on one occasion she was hit on her backside over 30 times with a sawed-off, shaved-down baseball bat with holes in it. She said she was punished when she tried to escape from the home. Donna also testified that all the doors and the windows were kept locked at all times, and during her 6-month stay, she was only allowed to go outside the building twice. Cindy T., who was committed to the home by her parents because of drug abuse problem, says she was held down by 2 workers while she was hit about 30 times with a large wooden paddle. Her punishment came because another girl talked her into helping her escape. A young girl who lived near the home, Pam Pellegrin, testified that a group of girls that escaped from the home wound up at her doorstep. She said the girls all had large bruises over their backs, buttocks, arms, and legs. The courtroom was packed with ministers and some parents supporting the Bethesda home. Bob McMillan, who had a 16-year-old daughter in the home, says his daughter confirmed much of the testimony he heard today.
She does not like it necessarily, but she really doesn't have the option. She has a problem. She's a runaway, and she has a problem in that situation. So she was there because the courts and my wife and I declared it would be better for her to go there than to Macon, Georgia. I'm from Fayetteville, Georgia, and it was an option that I asked the courts, and they accepted the option.
McMillan says his daughter had been in and out of 6 youth detention centers over the past several years before she was sent to Bethesda. He says although he doesn't agree with all the practices at the home, he would send his daughter back if they'd have her. McMillan says he'd rather her be in the home than be on the streets, using drugs and prostituting her body for money. Testimony will resume in the case tomorrow. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
The convention was held in Atlanta February 2nd through the 5th. The state paid the $120 per person registration fee for both Wagstaff and Booker. $80 of that fee went for meals provided by the American Association of Blacks in Industry. But when Booker and Wagstaff returned to Alabama, they charged the state a total of $393.95 for food expenses. Booker says he spent $207 for 3 meals a day for 4.5 days. Wagstaff claimed he had spent $186 for meals.
Did you not eat the meals that were authorized with the registration money and you went and bought other meals? Is that what happened?
As per that, Norman, there were some meals that I ate, most of them that I didn't eat.
Everything that was incurred in terms of my expenses in Atlanta was, number one, approved beforehand, and number two, reflects that and is legitimate just as I turned it in.
There are other questionable details surrounding the Atlanta convention. Booker's expense account shows he arrived in Atlanta early enough to eat breakfast and lunch on February 2nd, although registration for the convention didn't even begin until 6 o'clock that night. Additionally, Booker charged the state for 4 nights lodging at the Atlanta Peachtree Plaza Hotel. The convention lasted only 3 nights.
Conference ended Friday afternoon, and I simply stayed over until Saturday morning. I was rather tired, and I didn't feel like driving back.
There are still more questions raised by the Atlanta trip. Wagstaff's expense account claimed he'd eaten dinner in Atlanta on the 3rd of February. The meal reportedly cost $27. But PSC sources say at 3:30 p.m. on that same day, Wagstaff was at his PSC office in Montgomery celebrating his birthday. When Wagstaff and Booker turned in their expense accounts after the Atlanta convention, they did not submit vouchers or receipts for the expensive meals. In checking with the state auditor's office, I discovered that state employees are required to have receipts for every expense except meals. One auditor who asked not to be identified told me that based on the expense of some of the meals that are filed with the auditor's office, and I'm quoting now, some state workers have stomachs as big as elephants, unquote. Today, PSC President Billy Joe Kemp sent Wagstaff a memo requesting Wagstaff refund to the state the total cost for meals during Wagstaff's visit in Atlanta. In Kemp's words, to remove any doubt as to the propriety of the expenses. While checking into allegations of wrongdoing by Booker and Wagstaff, I was told by a reliable PSC staff member that Washington Booker frequently misses work at the PSC, occasionally working only 2 days out of a week. It is known that Booker has been reprimanded by his boss, Jim Folsom Jr., because of his work record.
Both the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office and the state police have copies of the Booker and Wagstaff vouchers. Just last year, former Public Service Commission President Juanita McDaniel was convicted and sentenced to prison for ethics code violations dealing with out-of-town expenses. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Public Service Commission.
In today's first quarter final match, Alabama with Georgia for the 3rd time this season. The 19th-ranked Crimson Tide got off to a sizzling start behind Philip Lockett and Eddie Phillips. Lockett gave Bama their biggest first-half lead at 13 when he banks in this shot. He led Bama with 20. Phillips added 18. He scores here in heavy traffic. But All-American Dominic Wilkins kept Georgia within reach. He had a game-high 29. This bucket off the fast break cut Bama's lead to 45-42 early in the second half. But that would be as close as the Dogs would get. Vern Fleming chipped in 20 for Georgia. This bucket off the offensive rebound brought a foul and a three-point play. But Alabama refused to give in. Phillips' slam off the fast break here put Bama back up by 11, where they would stay. The final, Alabama 85, Georgia 74. The Crimson Tide now meets the Vandy, Tennessee winner tonight in the semifinals tomorrow night. Ole Miss advanced with a 7-point win over LSU. This game was anybody's early. Johnny Jones was red hot for the Tigers. This 20-footer put LSU up by 2 in the early going. The Rebels countered with scoring machine Carlos Clark. He had a game-high 28, 2 on this first-half baseline jumper. To the second half, the Tigers were in control until this 18-footer by Brad Pierce gave the Rebels the lead for good at 47-46. Clark then went to work. This 14-footer made it 51-48. From there, foul shots would cap it for Ole Miss. The final, 59-52. The Rebels now meet the winner of tonight's Auburn-Kentucky game. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
The suit was brought on behalf of Candy H., a 19-year-old pregnant girl from Montgomery who stayed at the house until her lawyers removed her last month. Much of the testimony today came from a 16-year-old Mississippi girl identified only as Donna M., who stayed at the house for 6 months. She testified she was beaten on at least 3 different occasions, including once when she was hit over 30 times with a sawed-off, shaved-down baseball bat. All the alleged beatings were administered to her backside. She testified that some girls were forced to sleep on the floor because there were not enough mattresses to go around. Donna told the court she was only allowed to go outside twice during her 6-month stay and that the doors and windows were always kept locked. On cross-examination, she told the court the house was concerned with the teaching of the Bible and education for the girls. One of those who listened to the testimony in court was Bob McMillan, who put his 16-year-old daughter in the Bethesda home. McMillan says his daughter confirmed much of the testimony, but even though he doesn't agree with all the practices of the Bethesda home, he still says it's better than his daughter being out on the streets as a runaway.
If you had a chance after hearing part of the testimony today, would you send her back down there? I have reservations, of course. It's pretty much as it was explained to me before I went there, and probably because I know where she is.
Testimony will resume in the case tomorrow morning. Reporting from the federal courthouse, Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
Every day, because my hair really gets, sticks out all over the place if I don't take care of it every day.
And tell us about this buff haircut that your barber gave you.
Well, see, Monday I
The error happened when two AEA-backed amendments offering a 16% increase for teachers and lunchroom workers conflicted. They were written in such a way that the lunchroom worker amendment repealed the teacher pay raise amendment, leaving them with the administration's proposed 14% teacher pay raise. But the House leadership took advantage of the error early and passed the bill on to the Senate today. The AEA-backed members were upset because they hadn't been told of the error and hadn't been given a chance to correct it. But the House leadership says it's up to that group to check its own amendments. That bill now goes to the Senate, where it's expected that the teacher pay raise will be pushed back up to 16%. Today, the Senate worked on a long list of bills, passing most of them. Among those bills passed was one by Senator Don Harrison of Montgomery. That bill exempts church schools from any control of curriculum and attendance by the State Department of Education. But the bill does require the church schools to keep attendance records for truancy purposes only. Harrison says his bill further enforces the separation of church and state. That bill now goes to the House for its consideration. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Quarterfinal play began today with Alabama thumping Georgia 85-74. Philip Lockett and Eddie Phillips led the way for the Crimson Tide. 2 of Lockett's 20 points here on this nice turnaround hook. Phillips added 18. He scores here with a bucket inside. Dominic Wilkins, as always, paced Georgia with a game-high 29. He gets a jam here off the Bulldog fast break. Alabama whips Georgia for the 3rd time this year. They will now meet Tennessee in the semifinals, because the Vols came from behind to beat Vanderbilt tonight. At one point, the Commodores led by as much as 7. James Williams' slam dunk here put Vandy up 33-26 in the first half. But the Vols fought back behind the 24 points of Dale Ellis. His jumper in the lane here tied the game at 52. Steve Ray added 13. His outside bomb here tied it once again at 54. Tennessee then went to the stall, putting it on ice for over 5 minutes. Dale Ellis will then can this baseline jumper with 2:33 remaining. That made it 56-54 Vols. They added a free throw and played keep away from Vandy to make the final 57-54. They take a trip to the semis with Alabama tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Defending tournament champ Ole Miss advanced with a 59-52 win over LSU. Carlos Clark paced the Rebels with 18 points. His bucket inside tied the game early. James Jones kept LSU ahead much of the contest. He had 14, most from long range like this. But when Brad Pierce connects here, Ole Miss went in front to stay at 47-46. Rebel free throws kept the Tigers at bay. Ole Miss will meet the Auburn-Kentucky winner in tomorrow's other semifinal at 8 o'clock. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
When Amendments 1, 2, and 3 were passed by voters statewide Tuesday, it set into motion one of the largest construction projects in recent Alabama history. Today, members of the governor's staff met with bonding attorneys to look at what the state will need to do to be ready to invest the oil money and then issue more than $500 million in bonds. That bond money will be used for the long list of construction, road and bridge, and other projects outlined in the governor's plan.
The great majority of that will be under contract this year, as we've always said.
But first, the governor's office is waiting for the Secretary of State's office to verify the canvassing of Tuesday's vote. That could be finished within the next 2 weeks. The governor says actual progress on these projects could start as early as mid-April. With the victory under his belt, the governor was asked if this might be a platform for a bid for re-election.
Well, you know, being that I'm getting to be such a good politician, I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer. Hadn't started to think about it yet. We got, I mentioned, you know, these other issues, and we're campaigning awfully hard for a good budget and for a responsible government here, and for my isolation thing to get back going again, and for the cost of government. That's what we're interested in doing.
Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Oh, happy, happy wedding, I have come to sing. We hope that you will be happy, oh, with those wedding rings.
Local judge and attorney Randolph Reeves is getting married tomorrow, so all his friends got together and decided to send him a bellygram. This particular variety comes complete with a singing messenger who sings a special song and then introduces the main attraction.
This is, next to my blood test, this is the most fun I've had in this wedding.
And what does he think the bride's reaction will be?
Well, she's had a lot of experience working with first graders, and I think she'll probably handle it about like she handles them.
Reeves' friends say the best is yet to come. They've planned a big bachelor party tonight, and who knows what might happen. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News. Local attorney Randolph Reeves is getting married tomorrow, and a few of his buddies got together and bought him a bellygram, complete with a singing messenger.
Hope you're happy on your day off when she says go cut the grass. You've been planning on it, and then she says get off of your knees. Happy, happy wedding.
And a belly dancer. What does Randolph Reeves think of all this?
This is, next to my blood test, this is the most fun I've had in this wedding.
Grant Cooper says a bellygram is just one of several singing telegrams his company, Surprise Express, has to offer. He says there's also the gorillagram and the machogram. Cooper says Valentine's Day is usually the day when singing telegrams are in the biggest demand. He says there's always a demand for telegrams like the bellygram. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
Now, did you have any idea they're going to do this to you? No.
There is is some question about, because of the timing of the election, and then you have to turn right around and qualify in the primary and run the general election, about whether or not that is actually worth the effort to do that. But we have not made up our minds on what we're going to do yet, and I think we'll probably make that known when we make the decision.
Is there a reason why you all are kind of keeping things under wraps as to what you might want to do?
Well, there's nothing about keeping it under wraps. There's just no need in broadcasting your game plan to the opposition.
The Republicans are holding a candidate school now. 4 days of intensive training on organizing, advertising, and even speech making. Potential candidates from all over the state are here, but they're keeping everything behind closed doors. Some of those potential candidates meeting here may be interested in the District 27 seat, but Republican leaders say they haven't decided yet whether they'll run somebody in the special election or wait until November, when they'll have a full slate of Republican candidates, including someone in the governor's race. The Democrats, on the other hand, have made no secret over who's interested in running for the seat. Larry Dixon got the nod from the county executive party Wednesday night. He and Barry Teague will both appear on the ballot when the state party makes its decision. And one other name to add to the list is Gordon Tucker. He's running as an independent. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News, at the Governor's House.
I think that our considerations are based on whether or not, what the race looks like, and whether or not it's worth the effort and the money to go through. If you run a special election on April 6th and turn around and qualify and run in a primary and then run in the general election, you're talking about a phenomenal amount of money for a Senate seat, and I'm not sure how much the advantage of incumbency would be.
The county party has made their recommendation as to who they would.
Statistics from the state's development office show a loss in manufacturing jobs in many Alabama companies and industries. Figures indicate for the past 2 years, many firms have suffered a loss of over 27,000 jobs. In the last 6 months, 10,000 jobs were eliminated, and ADO officials expect that trend to continue.
Officials are blaming the gloomy trend on a number of factors: the recession, overproduction, and antiquated equipment. Compounding the problem are companies with modern facilities and competition. That combination spells failing industries. However, aid to existing industries is on the way.
We find that companies that are engaged in the export to a foreign country of their product are not suffering any loss in demand in that particular market, because that particular market may be doing good. So we would like to explain to Alabama manufacturers the benefits of penetrating the foreign market and exporting their products.
Denton says another viable solution for keeping industries in business is to get them to retrain their employees who are laid off. Other suggestions include possible mergers and joint ventures between companies and encouraging Alabamians to buy products made in the state. Denton says hopefully these suggestions will keep Alabama in business. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News. One of the ways to help cities with little or no industry is to show city officials how to get new industry.
We've been working with the city and county leadership in those areas to try to get those communities better prepared, because it's a fact of life that the communities that are getting the new industries are the very same ones that are prepared for new industry.
For cities that have existing industries, Denton suggests that firms retrain employees who are laid off. Some businesses, he says, should consider joint ventures or mergers. Another option for staying in business is to export goods overseas and encourage Alabamians to buy homemade products. Denton hopes these suggestions will help. He says the state isn't alone in the loss of manufacturing jobs. He and many firms blame the slowdown on the economy.
Well, the biggest reason lately is this downturn in the nation's business, what we'd call a recessionary effect. There are a lot of other reasons that businesses go out of business: overproduction, automation, new technologies, competition, poor management, antiquated equipment. There's a number of factors, and if you get some of those combined, they result in loss of business and sometimes business failures.
Kim Davis, WSFA TV News. Okay.
The testimony came from ABI agent Ken Halford, one of the men who arrested Hope at the Clanton Holiday Inn June 3rd last year. Halford says on that day he watched as Hope drove into a parking lot behind the hotel and parked next to a yellow and white Lincoln Continental. Earlier testimony indicated that Hope had allegedly agreed to place $500 and a rifle into the trunk of the car. Halford says after Hope's pickup truck stopped next to the car, Hope got out of the truck and took a long tan package from the bed of the truck. Halford says he then saw Hope walk over to the car, open the trunk, and place the package inside. Halford says at that moment he and another ABI agent walked out of the hotel room where they had been watching from and arrested Hope. Halford says inside the trunk, agents found the tan package, an envelope, and a trunk key. Later testimony revealed that the envelope contained $500 and the package contained an old bolt-action rifle. The final witness of the day, state forensic investigator Lonnie Harden, said the rifle was capable of firing and that the serial numbers and manufacturer's name had been removed from the rifle, apparently with a grinding wheel. Among state's evidence entered today are several grinding wheels seized in the search of Hope's home a few days after his arrest and a roll of paper. Harden says some of the grinding wheels found at Hope's home apparently matched the size grinding wheel used on the rifle, while a torn edge of the paper the gun was found wrapped in was shown to match another torn edge on the roll of paper found in Hope's home. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News in the Elmore County Courthouse.
It was the first time the prosecution presented accounts of Hope's arrest. An agent for the Alabama Bureau of Investigation, Ken Halford, says he saw Hope place a brown paper package in the trunk of a yellow and white Lincoln Continental at the Clanton Holiday Inn June 3rd last year. Halford says that's when he and another agent arrested Hope. Inside the trunk, Halford says they found the package, an envelope, and a key to the trunk. Other testimony indicated the envelope contained $500 and the package contained a rifle. Earlier, there were indications that Hope allegedly agreed to place that sum of money and an old rifle into the car on that night. And late in the day, there was further testimony about the rifle and the package it came in. A state forensic scientist specializing in weapons, Lonnie Harden, testified the old bolt-action rifle was capable of firing and that the serial numbers and manufacturer's name had been removed, apparently with a grinding wheel. Several grinding wheels and a roll of brown paper found in a search of Hope's home were also entered as evidence. Harden testified some of the wheels were the same size as the wheel apparently used to work on the gun. Harden also showed that the paper used to wrap the gun had a torn edge, which matched the torn edge of the roll of paper found in Hope's home. This was the fifth day the prosecution has presented evidence against Hope. The defense today accused prosecuting attorney James Patton of just piling up evidence, some of which defense lawyers suggest may have little to do with the facts of the case. The trial resumes tomorrow morning. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News at the Elmore County Courthouse.
Jean Merritt, a psychotherapist from Virginia, testified much of the day as an expert witness for the plaintiffs on cults and brainwashing. Merritt says the four girls she talked to had been brainwashed by the home. She also told the court the home satisfied the elements that would make up a brainwashing or cult environment. Defense attorney David Gibbs countered that the practices followed at the home were no more than religious doctrine and had nothing to do with cults or brainwashing. Merritt said the isolated status of the girls and the fear that was instilled in them were not part of religious doctrine. She says the church members are free to make up their minds about what a pastor says in church, but the girls she talked to didn't have that option. Gibbs countered again that Merritt could not draw conclusions because she never visited or attempted to visit the home. The Reverend Bob Wills was called to the stand late this afternoon. He testified that he made several trips to Alabama to raise money for the home. He also testified that more Alabama girls have attended the home than Mississippi girls. Earlier in the day, a woman identified as Rebecca Brown DeLee told the court she saw Wills beat a pregnant girl across the backside because she wanted to keep her baby. The alleged incident happened while she was a resident at the home in 1973. Testimony is expected to resume in the case Monday. From the federal courthouse, Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
Well, my son is coming along and starting a career in racing, and of course I feel the best place to get experience is the place where I enjoy racing the most, and that's the short tracks. And we have the Rattlesnake Rodeo at Opp on March the 7th, and Davey will be in the field.
Bobby, how does racing on the short tracks compare with, say, the Daytona 500 or a large major race?
Well, the short tracks are a whole lot less pressure-packed. The atmosphere is more casual. The racing is just as serious and sometimes more competitive.
What do the hobbies of painting and rodeoing have in common? Well, nothing really, unless you're Hope Hull's Bruce Brennan. This rodeo veteran of several years also happens to be a very good artist. You're looking now at some of his work. For the last 5 years, Bruce has devoted his painting skills to Western art, which he says is his first love.
It's always been something that I wanted to do that was my favorite type of art, and so the last 5 years I've gone exclusively to Western art.
Why Western art?
Well, I guess I never outgrew wanting to be a cowboy.
Brandon will be one of many participating in the upcoming 25th Annual Livestock World Championship Rodeo at Garrett Coliseum. Bruce is a calf roper, a tough trade that he says he loves.
Ropers have it a little tougher than some people in that they have to haul a horse, which increases your expenses. You have to practice, and you have to have facilities to practice. And it's just a lot more involved than riding bucking horses or bulls or something would be.
You can see Bruce and many others like him beginning Wednesday at Garrett Coliseum. His fine artwork will also be on display throughout the 5-day competition. The Wildcats charged out of the gate like Kentucky thoroughbreds last night. They roared out to a 20-point halftime lead behind the play of Dirk Minifield and Derek Horde. Minifield led the way with 18 points, most from long-range jumpers like this. Horde had his share as well. He bombs here from the corner. Auburn overcame miserable 23% first half shooting to pull within range in the second half. Charles Barkley played exceptional. Watch this play. The steal. He'll take it all the way and jam it through. The big freshman led the Tigers with 18. Alvin Mumford chipped in 16. This jumper pulled Auburn to within 12 at 58-46. But that was as close as the Tigers would get. When Dickie Beal converts this three-point play, Kentucky had an incredible 28-point lead. The Wildcats advanced to tonight's semifinals with an 89-66 win over Auburn.
Our job is to help create manufacturing jobs in Alabama, and we're going to try to do everything that we can to work with Alabama's existing industry to reverse this trend and not only create the jobs, but restore jobs that have been lost.
Okay. What are some of the reasons that these companies and industries have gone out of business and are going out of business?
Well, the biggest reason lately is this downturn in the nation's business, what we call a recessionary effect. There are a lot of other reasons that businesses go out of business: overproduction, automation, new technologies, competition, poor management, antiquated equipment. there's a number of factors, and if you get some of those combined, they result in loss of business and sometimes business failure.
There's something about American history that no written words can express. In fact, the only way to see America is through the eyes of those who were actually there.
The American image from 1860 to 1960 is on display at the Museum of Fine Arts from now until April 4th. Montgomery is one of 6 museums nationwide to exhibit the special collection of photographs. History curator Mary Ward says 5 million pictures were viewed, and only 200 were selected for display. And the local museum is showing 178.
They are selected on the basis of being visually arresting and also historically important. They are important because they were taken by government photographers, by different bureaus or departments of the government, for the government.
And one would not ordinarily see these photographs in our history textbooks, would we?
No, that's right. They tried to select ones that we will not immediately recognize. We may recognize the event, but not the photograph.
There are some photographs that are taken of children and mothers.
Those photographs, many of them were taken by the Children's Bureau to show the conditions that children were working under, and also the fact that children were working. The labor laws had not been passed. And a photographer named Hines did take many of these photographs. You will see a little girl working in a cotton mill also. And that shows you a child at the age of 12 working barefoot.
Do you think that these photographs did help to implement child labor laws?
Yes, I think they did. They definitely showed you another side that you were not able to know or understand without the photographs.
Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
We've assembled some candidates for legislative and local office and some managers from all over the state, and we're going through how to design a good campaign and what a campaign consists of, and how to campaign, perhaps what to expect in the coming months, and a way for them to get started in their operation. And it's been a very good meeting. This is the third day of it, and we're really excited about what's happened here. there are Republicans from all over the state and a pretty good number of candidates for the legislature, and we think we're going to do well this year based, if nothing else, just on the quality of people that are represented here at this meeting. Do you have anything kind of...
That's the meanest thing in the world I've said.
Scary, huh? Well, it should be. That's a rattlesnake. Fangs, venom, and everything. But these snakes aren't scaring people away. They're the main attraction, what people from all over the state come to see. And who's this? Signing autographs? None other than Montgomery Mayor Emery Fulmer.
Got a little campaigning doing here, huh?
Oh, I was master of ceremonies, as a matter of fact, to the beauty pageant last night. Just having a great time here in Opp.
Have you eaten any rattlesnake yet?
Have I eaten any? No, but I'm fixing to in just a minute. I've been had to handle one or two of them, and I like our Burmese python at our Montgomery Zoo a little better, I believe. These are ornery critters.
Honorary critters, huh? Well, I had to see for myself.
Where does the poison
See,
come out?
that's right there. You looking at the business end.
How big is this snake?
That probably weighs about 9 pounds, 8, 9 pounds, something like that. Rattles the hell.
And this is just a rattlesnake? Or
Eastern diamondback rattles.
Eastern diamond. Is that one of the most dangerous kinds, or what?
Well, in this area it is.
The Rattlesnake Rodeo has a little of everything. Snakes, of course, big and small. And contests like tobacco spitting, where youngsters match their spitting ability against adults. There's also a queen.
What do you have to do to perform your duties as reigning queen?
Well, I have to eat some rattlesnake.
More politicians.
Snake meat, I think, is something that we're probably going to want to think about in the future of having a great industry.
And live television and radio broadcasts. One of the biggest attractions at the rodeo is frying up the snake meat and eating it.
What do you think of your snake meat? Does it taste good? What does it taste like?
Chicken.
They say it tastes a lot like chicken, maybe even better than steak. Man, I don't know about that. I've never tried rattlesnake, never really had the desire to do so. But since I'm in Up and it is the Rattlesnake Rodeo, I just don't think I can leave without at least trying a little of it, so here goes. Good, as they say. It's really not bad.
Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News, in Opp.
Wow.
The last prosecution witness came to the witness stand at 9 o'clock this morning. He is Shelby County District Attorney Billy Hill, one of 4 men Hope allegedly wanted killed. He testified that he was involved in the trials that resulted in murder convictions for 2 of Hope's sons. Then, after a lengthy cross-examination by defense attorney Lawrence Sheffield, Jr., just before noon, the prosecution rested. Immediately after that, Sheffield asked Judge Walter Hayden to do away with the murder conspiracy charges. Sheffield says the prosecution failed to prove a conspiracy ever existed. Sheffield says a conspiracy requires at least 2 people, and since Jett testified he never had any intention of having Braddock killed, there could be no conspiracy. But the judge disagreed, and around 1 o'clock this afternoon, the defense began presenting their side of the case. Their first witness was Jesse Jett, who appeared for the prosecution earlier this week. During questioning, Sheffield tried to suggest that Jett was not solicited by Hope, but that Jett lured Hope into a trap set by Jett and the Alabama Bureau of Investigation. Sheffield has claimed that Jett wants to be paroled and created the alleged conspiracy so he could gain favor with state authorities. After Jett's testimony, the defense returned to a pile of tape recordings put into evidence by the prosecution earlier this week. Tapes Patton says were made during alleged conversations between Hope and Jett in State and Correctional Center last May. Late today, the jury began listening to portions of those recordings, which the prosecution did not play earlier this week. During the state's presentations, the defense repeatedly complained that by playing only portions of the tapes, the prosecution gave false impressions of the substance of the alleged conversations. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News in the Elmore County Courthouse.
It was the 6th day in a trial Judge Walter Hayden said at first might last only half that long. The prosecution presented its final witness this morning, Shelby County District Attorney Billy Hill, one of 3 men other than Graddick that an earlier witness for the state said Hope wanted killed. Hill told the jury he did take part in the prosecution of 2 of Hope's sons, who were convicted of murder. Prosecuting attorneys in this case, led by James Patton, say Hope was mad at people involved in his son's convictions and wanted revenge. The defense team, led by Lawrence Sheffield Jr., cross-examined Hill at length, and then Patton told the judge the prosecution rest. Sheffield immediately followed that with a request that the court throw out a great deal of the prosecution's evidence. Sheffield says the state failed to prove that any conspiracy ever existed. Sheffield says 2 people must be involved for a conspiracy to exist. In earlier testimony from state prison inmate Jesse Jett, the man Hope allegedly offered $1,500 to have Graddick killed, Jett said he never had any intention of arranging Graddick's murder. Sheffield says Jett was the only person the prosecution has suggested Hope was conspiring with, and since Jett denies that he would take part, no conspiracy ever existed. But Judge Hayden disagreed, and the defense began presenting their case early this afternoon. Their first witness was Jett, who appeared for the prosecution earlier. Sheffield has said from the beginning of the trial that Hope was lured into a trap set by Jett and the Alabama Bureau of Investigation. Sheffield's questions to Jett this afternoon indicated he's still holding to that idea. The jury also listened to more tape recordings today. The prosecution entered 16 tapes as evidence that they say were recorded during alleged conversations between Hope and Jett at Staten Correctional Center last May. When the prosecution presented the tapes, the jury was only allowed to hear portions of some tapes. Today, the defense allowed the jury to hear the rest of the tapes, which they say will help present a more accurate account of the conversations. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News at the Elmore County Courthouse.
Police estimate that at least 2 tons of coins and precious metals valued at over $1 million were taken from the display area and loaded onto a truck which was backed into this rear door of the Civic Center. A According to police, only one security guard was on duty at the time of the holdup.
They knocked on the door, front door of the Civic Center, and the maintenance man went to the door. They said they had a package for one of the participants in the coin show. He escorted them inside and told them they had to check in with the security guard, and when they got to the security guard, they could use their weapons, and overpowered the security officer, disarmed him, and then
Captain Alford says the private security guard, 52-year-old Houston Golden, and the maintenance man, James Lee, were tied up, but worked themselves free about 3 a.m. and called police. When officers arrived, they found the ransacked display area. Investigators say numerous coins were left behind, scattered around on the floor. While police estimate the value of the merchandise taken at over $1 million, exhibitors say the net worth could be as much as $5 million. One of the coin dealers was said to have lost a bag of 100 solid gold Krugerrands and several bars of 100-ounce silver, all of which was estimated to be worth $500,000. Police released this composite drawing of one of the suspects, described as a white male, 28 to 35 years of age, blonde hair and mustache, wearing a tan leather coat and a cowboy hat. The second suspect is described as a white male, 30 to 40 years of age, weighing 180 pounds with a dark beard, also dressed in a cowboy hat and coat. Police say one of the men was armed with a large blue steel revolver and the other had a knife. The coin show, which opened yesterday, has now been canceled. From the Civic Center, Dan Black, WSFA TV News.
Well, I was sitting in my living room and I heard the crash Thursday evening and rode my bicycle out and saw what had happened. And at that time I had made the decision that something had to be done about that intersection because a woman was killed there the year before, just after I had moved to this area. So I think something should be done about that intersection. It's very dangerous.
The prosecution, led by Colbert County District Attorney James Patton, has presented a well-organized and comprehensive array of evidence and testimony tracing the development of the alleged plot, starting with the first alleged meeting between Hope and state prison inmate Jesse Jett at Staten Correctional Center May 2nd last year. Jett has testified at that meeting Hope first asked him to help find someone to kill Graddick and 3 other men. Jett's testimony indicated Hope was mad at the men for their involvement in the prosecution of 2 of his sons, who were convicted of murder. Jett has testified that after the first meeting he contacted state authorities because he didn't want to see anyone get killed. From that point on, Jett says he pretended to go along with Hope's alleged scheme, all the while telling agents for the Alabama Bureau of Investigation just what was afoot. ABI agents have presented tape recordings of alleged conversations between Hope and Jett at Staten and over the telephone, during which the prosecution says the murder plot was discussed. There are photographs and videotapes which ABI agents say place Hope at the site of one planned drop of $500 and a rifle that failed. And an ABI agent has said he saw Hope place a long tan package in the trunk of a car at the Clanton Holiday Inn moments before the arrest, June 3rd. Other agents have testified the package contained a rifle, and an envelope also found in the trunk contained $500. Clearly, that testimony, along with the testimony from Jett and the tape recordings, will be the biggest stumbling blocks to the father and son defense team of Lawrence Sheffield Jr. and Lawrence Sheffield III. Ironically, the apparent care with which the ABI pursued their investigation may prove a weapon for the defense. The Sheffields indicated when the trial started that they believe Hope is an innocent man who is the victim of a well-organized and comprehensive frame-up by Jett and state authorities. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Atlanta, April 1913. A factory girl, 13-year-old Mary Fagan, is found dead. Her employer, Leo Frank, a Jewish businessman, is charged with murder. The trial made history. Mobs crowded the courtroom, yelling, "Kill the Jew." And on August 28th, Leo Frank was sentenced to hang. convicted mostly because of Jim Conley, a sweeper at the factory who said Frank killed the girl. But the jury never heard from this man, 84-year-old Alonzo Mann, an office boy at the factory the day Mary Fagan died. First to Jerry Thompson of the Nashville Tennessean, and then to me. Mann told a story he's kept buried for 69 years.
And when I entered the door, I saw a shadow over at the elevator. So I walked over to the steps, and when I turned my head to the right, Jim Conley was standing there with a girl in his arms, and the girl was limp. Jim Conley turned around to me and says, "If you say anything about this, I will kill you."
When he got home, his mother said, "Keep silent," and the boy, frightened, did what he was told. 2 years later, a mob lynched Leo Frank. It seems now, as it should have then, they hanged the wrong man. Colin Sedor for NBC News, Atlanta.
Federalism is nothing but old federalism. Old federalism is the idea that the government that's closest to the people is good. When programs are returned to Alabama to be administered, then we as Alabamians will have the say about how they're to be run, which ones will be funded properly.
Falmer's only criticism of the new federalism is that the programs aren't being returned to the states fast enough. He chastised the Democrats who are critical of the president's plan, saying they aren't offering any concrete alternative. He supports Reagan's defense budget, saying America must make sure that Russians understand that this country has the willpower to defend itself. If Falmer's support of the president's program sounds like a gubernatorial campaign speech, well, Falmer addressed that subject too, saying he's thinking seriously about running and at the same time having a good time letting the people know where he stands on the issues. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
Because we need everybody in the decision-making process. Our government is formed, then they condemn themselves and their families to be ruled by people who they may not want to be doing it. Well, that's what the country voted for in November of 1980, is to reduce the level of federal spending, to get the decision-making process back in the hands of the people. And if the people want to have this proliferation of programs, then they indeed, you and I, must decide that we want them. Faceless bureaucrats. And they think a $10 national debt, all right, just to be involved in it. Whatever your persuasion, be involved. Whatever you think, be involved. Because we need everybody in the decision-making process. Now,
pretty good, Judge. I appreciate them too.
Yeah.
UAV?
Yeah, very kind to honor me like this.
How many miles per pair of shoes?
On this.
You get you some.
We're going to some wool socks. This is cotton socks will keep you up. I've had pretty good. We'll try some wool ones next time.
But I can't accept the fact that just go home and die. If I'm going to die, I'd rather be out here on the road trying to raise money for the Comprehensive Cancer Center and let Dr. John Durant come up with a cure for some sort of cancer.